The crystal chandelier in my parents' dining room cast dancing shadows across the perfectly arranged table setting. 5 years had passed since I'd sat here, yet nothing had changed. The same antique china, the same heavy silverware, the same suffocating atmosphere of disappointment. "Emma, pass the salt," my sister Amanda commanded, barely glancing up from her plate. Her designer watch caught the light as she reached for her wine glass. A gift from Dad for making junior partner at his law firm, no doubt. I slid the salt shaker across the table, remembering how different things were just 5 years ago. I was in my 3rd year at Princeton, following the path my parents had carefully planned since my birth. Business degree, then law school, then joining Dad's firm alongside Amanda. The perfect daughter duo they'd always dreamed of. But life had other plans. "So Emma," Mom began, her voice carrying that familiar edge of disapproval, "are you still working at that startup company?" Before I could answer, Amanda let out a sharp laugh. "Oh Mom, don't dignify it by calling it a company. She's probably just answering phones or something." I took a slow sip of water, letting the cool liquid wash away the bitter taste of their judgment. If they only knew that the startup was now worth over $3 billion and I owned 60% of it. "Actually," I started, but Dad cut me off. "Emma, we've been patient," he said, setting down his fork. "When you dropped out of Princeton, we thought it was just a phase. A temporary rebellion. But it's been 5 years. Don't you think it's time to grow up?" The words stung even after all this time. I could still remember the day I left Princeton. I'd discovered a security flaw in the university's financial system, one that could have exposed thousands of students' data. Instead of praising my discovery, the administration tried to bury it. That's when I realized I couldn't stay in a system that valued reputation over truth. "I am grown up, Dad," I replied calmly. "I'm doing quite well, actually." Amanda snorted. "Well, please. You live in a rented apartment, drive a used car, and work for some obscure tech company. Meanwhile, I just closed a $50 million deal for the firm." Mom beamed at Amanda. "We're so proud of her. She's carrying on the family legacy while you—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "While I what, Mom?" "While you're just—" She gestured vaguely, "wasting your potential. You could have been something. Instead, you're just a college dropout." The words hung in the air like poison. I opened my mouth to respond when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with my secretary's name. I normally wouldn't answer during dinner, but something told me this call was important. "Excuse me," I said, standing up. "I need to take this." "How unprofessional," Amanda muttered. "Can't even manage proper dinner etiquette." I stepped away from the table, my heart pounding. We'd been working on acquiring Sterling Corporation, one of the largest cybersecurity firms in the country, for months. The deal would either close today or fall through completely. "This is Emma," I answered, keeping my voice low. "Chairman," my secretary's voice came through clear and professional. "I'm pleased to inform you that the acquisition of Sterling Corp is complete. The board just unanimously approved the final terms. You now own 70% of the company." I closed my eyes, letting the news wash over me. Sterling Corp, the same company that had tried to hire me as an entry-level programmer 3 years ago, offering me a generous $50,000 salary. Now I owned it. "Thank you, Sarah," I said, turning back toward the dining room. "Please send me the final documents." I walked back to the table where Amanda was still talking about her latest legal victory. Mom and Dad hung on her every word, nodding with pride. "Oh, you're back," Amanda said with a smirk. "Did someone need their computer fixed?" I sat down, picked up my fork, and smiled. The next few minutes would change everything. "No," I said quietly. "That was my secretary. She was just informing me that my acquisition of Sterling Corporation is complete." The fork in Dad's hand clattered against his plate. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "What did you just say?" Amanda's voice had lost all its smugness. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed again, this time with a news alert. I turned the screen so they could all see the headline. "Breaking. Tech prodigy Emma Carter acquires Sterling Corp in $4.2 billion deal." The chandelier light suddenly felt very bright and the silence very, very deep. The silence in the dining room was deafening. Dad's face had gone pale, Mom's perfectly manicured hands trembled as she set down her wine glass, and Amanda looked like she'd been slapped. "This is some kind of joke," Amanda finally sputtered, grabbing my phone to stare at the news alert. "This can't be real." I pulled out my own laptop from my bag. The same bag Amanda had mocked earlier for not being designer. Would you like to see the acquisition papers? I asked calmly, opening my email. Emma, Dad's voice was different now, softer, almost pleading. What's going on? How is this possible? I took a deep breath. 5 years of silence, of letting them believe what they wanted about me, were about to end. Remember that security flaw I found at Princeton? I began, my voice steady. The one that made me drop out. Well, I didn't just find it, I figured out how to fix it. Not just for Princeton, but for any financial system. Mom's hand flew to her pearl necklace, clutching it like a lifeline. But you were just a student. I was a student who saw an opportunity, I corrected her. After I left Princeton, I spent 6 months developing my security software. Living on ramen noodles, coding 20 hours a day in my tiny studio apartment. Amanda's face had turned an interesting shade of red. That's impossible. You need capital connections. I smiled. You're right. And that's where Mr. Harrison came in. James Harrison? Dad nearly choked. The venture capitalist? The same, I nodded. He saw the potential in my software. Invested $2 million for a 20% stake. 6 months later, we landed our first major client, Goldman Sachs. The room spun with memories. Every dismissive comment, every disappointed look, every time they'd bragged about Amanda while treating me like a cautionary tale. Within 2 years, we were providing security systems for half of Wall Street, I continued. Last year, our revenue hit $900 million. And now with Sterling Corp. I paused, letting it sink in. We'll cross $5 billion next quarter. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. $5 billion. But you live in that small apartment, Amanda protested weakly. Your car. It's nothing special. Because I don't need to prove anything to anyone, I replied. I don't need a penthouse or a luxury car to know my worth. Just then my phone buzzed again. Another news alert. Sterling Corp acquisition makes Emma Carter youngest female tech CEO on Fortune 500. Dad reached for the phone with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the article, growing wider with each paragraph. You're worth $3.8 billion as of today's market close, I finished for him. Though that number might be higher after the Sterling announcement. Amanda pushed back her chair abruptly, standing up. Her face was a mask of fury and disbelief. This isn't fair, she hissed. I did everything right. Everything. I followed the plan, went to law school, joined the firm. I'm the successful one. No, Amanda, I said quietly. You're the obedient one. There's a difference. The sound of another incoming email caught everyone's attention. I glanced at my phone. It was from Sterling Corp's board. If you'll excuse me, I stood up, smoothing my simple black dress, the same one Amanda had sneered at earlier. I have a board meeting to attend. Apparently, when you acquire a $4 billion company, there's some paperwork involved. Wait, Mom called out as I reached for my bag. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this. About the family, about the future. I turned back, looking at their shocked faces. Now you want to talk? After 5 years of judgment and dismissal? 5 years of treating me like a failure. We didn't know. Dad started. No, you didn't, I cut him off. Because you never bothered to ask. You were too busy being disappointed in the daughter who dared to choose her own path. I was almost at the door when Amanda's voice stopped me. Is this why you came tonight? She demanded. To show off? To humiliate us? I turned slowly, taking in the scene one last time. The expensive china, the crystal glasses, the carefully curated image of success my parents had built their lives around. How small it all seemed now. No, Amanda, I said softly. I came because despite everything you're still my family. I hope that maybe, just maybe, you'd be happy for me. That you'd finally see me for who I am, not who you wanted me to be. Mom stood up, her perfectly composed facade cracking. But why didn't you tell us? All these years. Tell you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject to Amanda's latest achievement. Every family dinner became a reminder of how I'd thrown my life away. Why would I share my success with people who never wanted to hear about my struggles? My phone buzzed again, another message from the board. But this time I let them wait. Dad, I turned to him. Remember when I was 10 and I took apart your computer to see how it worked? Instead of encouraging my curiosity, you lectured me about destroying expensive things. That was the first time I realized my interests didn't fit your plan for me. Dad's face fell, recognition flickering in his eyes. Emma, And Mom, I continued, remember when I won the state coding competition in high school? You didn't come because it conflicted with Amanda's mock trial. You said computers were just a hobby, that I needed to focus on real achievements. Tears welled in Mom's eyes, but I wasn't finished. And Amanda, I faced my sister who had spent years looking down at me from her perceived height of success. Every time I achieved something, you found a way to diminish it. Even tonight you couldn't resist mocking me, could you? The silence that followed was heavy with realization. My phone rang, video call from the Sterling Corp board. I answered it right there in the dining room, letting them all hear. Chairman Carter, the board president's voice filled the room. We're ready to begin the emergency session. The press is waiting for your statement about the acquisition. Thank you, James, I replied professionally. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I ended the call and looked at my family's stunned faces. That's why I kept my success quiet. Because I wanted to build something on my own terms, without your judgment or interference. And I did. Dad stood up slowly, his face aged 10 years in the past hour. Emma, we were wrong. So wrong. Can we start over? I adjusted my bag on my shoulder, feeling the weight of years of misunderstanding, but also the lightness of finally being seen. That depends, I said, my hand on the doorknob. Can you accept that success doesn't always look like your definition of it? That sometimes the dropout becomes the chairman? Please, Mom whispered, don't shut us out. I paused, thinking of all the lonely holidays, the missed calls, the years of proving myself to people who never bothered to look. I have a board meeting now, I said finally. But next week, if you're interested, I'm giving a keynote speech at the Global Tech Summit. I'd like you to come. See what your college dropout actually does. Amanda, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, spoke up. Will you tell us about it? Your company, how you built it? For the first time that evening, I saw something new in her eyes, not jealousy or contempt but genuine interest. Yes, I nodded. Over dinner maybe. But not here. At my office, the one you thought was so small? It takes up the top 3 floors of the Carter Tower downtown. Their jaws dropped again. The building they'd driven past countless times, wondering who owned it. The board's waiting, I said, opening the door. And unlike some people, I believe in being professional. As I walked to my car, the modest vehicle that could buy Amanda's sports car 3 times over, I felt lighter. The truth was finally out, and with it, the weight of their expectations had lifted. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Mr. Harrison. Congratulations, Emma. Your parents finally know what I knew 5 years ago, that sometimes the biggest success stories start with the courage to drop out. I smiled, starting my car. The night hadn't gone as planned, but maybe that was better. Sometimes the best revenge isn't showing people they were wrong about you, it's proving you were right about yourself all along. As I drove toward my office, toward my board meeting, toward my empire, I realized something. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something better, their respect. And I had earned every bit of it.